Hi, welcome back to my channel, or a very warm welcome if you're new here. My name is Sophie, and in today's video I'm going to be going through everything that I plan to read in April. So I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently this month. So last month I picked from a TBR jar, and then in February I picked using prompt cards. But I have decided for April that I'm actually going to let you, my viewers, pick what I read. So I've gone back through the comments on previous videos where any of you have left comments on what you would like to see me read, or anything you'd recommend, or anything that's on your own priority TBR. Magical Readathon is also taking place in April, so I do plan to participate in that this month. So for anyone that doesn't know, Magical Readathon is a kind of RPG style readathon which was set up by G at Book Roast, and the setting is a university and you get to create your character, and then semesters take place in April and September and you have to pass your classes. So you pick a calling and then the idea is to complete all your assignments. In order to pass your classes you have to fulfill certain reading prompts and read for those prompts. This readathon is great, and I am honestly amazed at how much detail G has gone into to plan this whole universe, and yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in a readathon. So I will link her channel and her readathon playlist below. And I have managed to pair your recommendations with the prompts that I need to fulfill, so it's perfect. But there are also a couple of books that don't fulfill any of these prompts. I actually realised that I haven't written down the details of which of you recommended these books or wanted me to read these books, so I will add that all to the description. So first I'm going to do the prompts for Magical Readathon, and there are 5 that I need to fulfill to complete my calling, so I chose the calling of Lexomancer. So the first class I need to pass is Conjuration, and the prompt for this one is the first enticing book you see on social media. So I basically just went into Bookstagram and found the first book that I was really excited to read. And this one was actually The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin. So this is one of my most anticipated books of this year. So I'm really excited to finally get around to reading this. So you may also notice as well that this is a different copy to what I've had in my haul. So this is actually the beautiful, I think it's the US edition with the sprayed edges, and this is the one that I had hoped that I'd pre-ordered, but I hadn't, so I've managed to track it down. But yeah, this is the book that I wanted, with this beautiful hard casing, those sprayed edges, and also it's a smaller hardback which will then match the rest of my Rachel Griffin books. So all I know about this one is it's set in a fairy tale setting, deep in the mountains. There's lots of snow, it's dark, and there is a star maker who is responsible for helping the sunrise every morning. And then we also follow our main character, Aurora Finch, who has grown up on stories of the star maker, and she does end up meeting him, and he sees potential within her and sees that she has magic to be harnessed. So I think he invites her to train with him, and then there is a romance between the two. So I absolutely adore Rachel Griffin's books. I've loved all of the books that I've read by her, especially The Nature of Witches. But I think this will be a little bit different to her other books because they were very much witchy focused, but I think this is going to be a bit more kind of magical fairy tale focused. So I'm really excited to read this one. Then the next class is Spells and Incantations, and it needs to be a book that's currently on a bestseller list. So I did try and kind of engineer this prompt a little bit more to suit me, and I decided to go for Weavingshaw by Heba Al-Wasity, and I did find this on a bestseller list, so it's good, it fulfills the prompt. And this one came, I think it was last month, in one of the Fairy Loot boxes, so I am keen to get to this one. So I don't remember much about the synopsis that I read, but I think this is going to be kind of gothic, dark academia focused with some kind of mystery. So yeah, I'm excited to get to this one. So the next class was meant to be Inscription, and that was a day of the week in the title, but I couldn't find anything that had a day of the week in the title. So as part of the readathon, you do build up points for various things. So you can also get a scroll which enables you to swap a prompt. So I have done that. So instead of inscription, I'll be doing shape shifting, and I needed to flip a coin. And if I got heads, I'd have to read a book under 400 pages, and if I got tails, over 400 pages. So I flipped tails, which is a book over 400 pages. So I have decided to read A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon J. Spann for this prompt. And again, this was on my most anticipated books of the year list. So I really can't wait to get to this one. So this has been described as similar to The Night Circus, which I love. And it's set in a playhouse, and I think there's going to be some kind of unraveling of mysteries that go on behind the scenes. And yeah, this is meant to be a dark fantasy, so I'm very intrigued to see what this one is about. So the next class is law, and the prompt for that is to read a dystopia or a utopia. So I do tend to have more dystopias on the shelves. So I did have a look at what's come in quite recently to the library, and I did pick Queen of Faces by Petrolord for this, as I believe it is a dystopia. So I think it's a fantasy, but it does seem to have dystopia-like elements. So this one is set in a fantasy world and also an academy, and in this world the wealthy can switch and change their bodies. And I believe our main character has really strong magical abilities and her body is failing her. So she ends up switching bodies and ends up in a boy's body. And then I think she becomes an assassin and becomes tangled up in a rebellion. And this one sounds really interesting. So the last class that I need to take is Restoration, and the prompt is to ask for 5 5-star books. So I did get this one from the Magical Readathon Discord. So people were suggesting various 5-star books that they've read, and one of these is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and I don't have a physical copy of that, but the reason why I put this on the list is I really want to go and see the film, but I really have to read books before I go and see films because I don't want the film to spoil my reading experience. So if I want to go and see that film, I'm going to have to read the book first. So I did borrow that on Libby as a digital book. So that's all of the Magical Readathon prompts fulfilled by your comments. I think the only one that was not in any comments is Project Hail Mary. So there were also another couple of books that came from your comments that I was really excited to read. So I've also added those to the April TBR. So the first of these is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. So I'm not a massive Jane Austen fan. I have read some of her work, but they're not some of my favourite books or some of my favourite classics. I much prefer the dark and gothic classics like the Bronte sisters. And this one really appeals to me because it is a parody of a gothic novel. So I'm really intrigued by this concept, and I would love to see how Jane Austen does kind of parody the gothic novel in this book. So yeah, I'm excited to get to this one. So the last book is actually my high priority read for April, as it is a proof that I was sent by the publisher. So I really need to get to this at the start of April so that I can write a review and post that before this is released. So this is Honey in the Wound by Ji Yong Han, and this is a multi-generational epic spanning a century of Korean history. So I think it follows a lineage of women, and I do also think that there's meant to be kind of magical realism elements in this, which I love. So yeah, I'm excited to get to this, and I'm gonna need to get straight on this in April. So those are all of the books that I plan to read in April, and all but one of those were picked by your comments. So thank you for leaving the comments and getting me to pick these books up sooner. And I will do a whole roundup of everything I've read at the end of April, so do come back for that if you want to see how I got on with these books. So here again are all of the books that I'm going to be reading this month, and yeah, it's a really interesting stack, so I'm really excited to get started with these. Let me know what you're planning to read in April in the comments, and do give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.